Maya was a young woman who lived in a small town called Linton. She had always been proud of her long, curly black hair. It was more than just hair to her. It was a part of who she was. Everyone in Linton knew Maya as kind, smart, and determined. She loved helping people and often spent her afternoons tutoring children at the local community center. Maya's life was ordinary in many ways, but the town itself had some problems. There were rules and traditions that sometimes made people feel small or powerless. Maya noticed how unfair things could be, especially for women and people with darker skin. She wanted to change things, but she always did it with her calm and clever nature, never by fighting or shouting. One sunny morning, Maya had to go into town to take care of some errands. She was carrying a small bag with her notebooks and a few important letters. As she walked down Main Street, she noticed a group of policemen standing near the corner. They were laughing and talking loudly. Maya tried to ignore them, but one officer waved at her. "Hey, Maya, come here for a second," one said. Maya walked closer, keeping her smile polite but careful. She had met some of these officers before, and she knew they liked to make jokes. They looked at her hair and started laughing, whispering to each other in a way that made her uncomfortable. "Why don't you let us fix that hair for you?" another officer asked with a grin. Maya's heart sank, but she stayed calm. She knew that arguing with them would not help, so she nodded slowly, pretending to play along. They took her to the small police station nearby. Inside, the officers continued laughing as they brushed and cut her hair without asking. Maya felt embarrassed and powerless, but she did not cry or yell. She simply watched, her mind quiet and sharp. When they were done, Maya left the station with her hair shorter than ever. Her face was calm, but inside she was thinking. She remembered everything, the laughter, the teasing, and the feeling that nobody cared about her dignity. Walking home, she promised herself that she would find a way to make sure such behavior could never happen again. She wanted change, but she wanted it in a way that was fair and strong, without becoming like the people who had laughed at her. Over the next few months, Maya focused on her studies and her community work. She spent hours in the library reading about laws, rights, and history. She learned how the legal system worked and how people could make a difference through justice. Maya realized that knowledge was the most powerful tool she could have. It could not be taken from her, and it could help her protect not only herself but others too. Her friends noticed a change in her. Maya had always been confident, but now there was a new spark in her eyes. She talked about fairness, equality, and respect. People started listening. Even some of the children she tutored asked questions about the law and justice, inspired by the way she spoke. Maya smiled every time she saw curiosity in young minds. She knew that this was part of the change she wanted to see in the world. One evening, a letter arrived at Maya's house. It was from a law school in the city. They had heard about her efforts in the community and her dedication to learning. They were offering her a scholarship to study law. Maya's heart raced with excitement. This was her chance to gain the skills she needed to fight for justice. She accepted the offer immediately. In law school, Maya worked harder than anyone else. She spent long nights reading cases, writing papers, and preparing for debates. Some of her classmates were surprised by her determination. But Maya did not care about impressing others. She cared about being ready for the moment when she could truly make a difference. Years passed, and Maya grew into a skilled lawyer. Her reputation for fairness and intelligence spread quickly. People trusted her, not because she shouted or demanded attention, but because she listened, understood, and acted wisely. Maya never forgot the day the officers laughed at her hair. That memory gave her strength. It reminded her why she had started this journey and why she could not give up. Back in Linton, the town continued to face challenges. Some people still treated others unfairly, and not everyone was held accountable for their actions. Maya knew that change would take time, but she believed in the power of courage, knowledge, and fairness. Every small step mattered. Every action she took could inspire others to stand up for what was right. One morning, Maya received news that would change everything. The officers who had laughed at her hair were involved in a serious legal case. Their actions had harmed many people in the community, not just her. Maya realized that the moment she had been preparing for had finally arrived. She had the chance to make a difference in a way that would be remembered. Maya felt a mix of emotions. She remembered the fear and embarrassment she had felt years ago, but she also felt a deep sense of calm. She was ready. This time she would not be powerless. She would use her knowledge, her skill, and her voice to ensure that justice was served, not with anger but with fairness and intelligence. As she walked through the courthouse for the first day of the trial, Maya noticed the same streets she had walked years ago. The memory of the laughter in the police station came back clearly, but now she felt different. She felt strong, prepared, and determined. The young woman who had been embarrassed and powerless was now a lawyer who could make sure that fairness and respect were never ignored again. Maya took a deep breath and stepped into the courtroom. She looked at the officers who did not recognize the strength and calm in her eyes. She thought about the children she had taught, the friends who believed in her, and the community that trusted her. Everything she had done, every long night of study and every moment of preparation had led to this day. The trial was about to begin, and Maya knew that her journey was not only about her own experience. It was about showing that courage, knowledge, and fairness could change the world. She was ready to speak, to guide, and to ensure that justice would be done. The woman who had once been laughed at was now the one everyone would listen to. Maya's story had just begun, but the first part of her journey had already shown that strength could come from patience, courage, and intelligence. She was ready to face the challenge ahead with dignity and determination. The courtroom was silent and all eyes were on her. Maya smiled quietly, knowing that she was ready to make history. The courtroom was large, with tall windows that let sunlight pour in and light the polished wooden floors. Maya walked to the front with calm steps. She carried her notes, but mostly she carried her confidence. The officers who had once laughed at her hair sat in the defendant's section. Their expressions were serious now, but they did not realize how much had changed since that day. The judge entered the courtroom. He was a kind man, known for listening carefully to both sides before making decisions. Maya bowed slightly in respect. She knew that respect was important in the courtroom. It showed that she was serious and that she understood the rules. She was ready to begin. The trial started with the lawyers for the other side speaking first. They tried to make the officers seem innocent, saying that their actions had been minor and not meant to hurt anyone. Maya listened carefully. She did not interrupt, she did not show anger, and she did not react. She wanted to hear every word. She knew that listening was part of her strength. When it was Maya's turn, she stood tall. Her voice was calm but firm. She began to tell the story of that day. She spoke about how she had been treated unfairly, how her hair had been cut without her permission, and how it had made her feel powerless. She did not shout or cry. Instead, she explained clearly and simply. Her words were precise and her story was true. Maya also spoke about the broader impact of such behavior. She explained that actions like this made many people in the community feel afraid or disrespected. She emphasized that fairness and respect were important for everyone, and no one should feel powerless because of someone else's behavior. The courtroom was quiet. People listened. Even the officers seemed surprised by how composed and strong she was. Evidence was presented. There were photographs, documents, and testimonies from other people who had faced unfair treatment. Maya carefully connected each piece of evidence to the larger point she was making. She showed that the officer's behavior was not just a single incident, but part of a pattern that needed to be addressed. Some of the officer's supporters tried to interrupt, but Maya stayed calm. She smiled gently, reminding the courtroom that anger or shouting would not help. Her calmness itself became powerful. It showed that she was in control, and that her focus was on truth and justice. One witness came forward. He was a neighbor who had seen what happened at the station. He described the laughter, the teasing, and how it had made Maya feel uncomfortable. His voice shook a little, but Maya encouraged him to continue. She nodded and thanked him after he spoke. The judge also nodded, signaling that his testimony was important. Maya also asked questions in a careful way. She wanted the officers to explain their actions. They spoke, but their words lacked honesty and clarity. It was clear to everyone listening that they had underestimated Maya and the people around her. The courtroom began to understand that the officers had acted without thinking about respect or fairness. The trial continued for several days. Maya presented stories from others in the community who had faced unfair treatment, showing how these actions affected real people. She also explained how respect and fairness were not just good ideas, but necessary rules for a safe and happy community. Her arguments were simple, clear, and strong. Outside the courtroom, people in the town began talking about the trial. They discussed Maya's courage and intelligence. Many young women and men felt inspired. They saw that one person, even someone who had faced unfair treatment, could use knowledge and courage to bring change. Maya's story was becoming an example for others to follow. Inside the courtroom, Maya noticed small changes in the atmosphere. The officers who had once laughed were now quiet. Their confidence seemed to fade as they realized that Maya had prepared carefully and knew exactly how to speak for fairness. Every word she said made them understand that they could not hide behind jokes or authority. Maya also spoke about forgiveness and learning. She said that people could make mistakes, but it was important to recognize them and change. She encouraged the officers to reflect on their actions, not because she wanted to punish them, but because she wanted the community to be stronger and kinder. Her words were firm but compassionate. The judge asked Maya questions about how the community could prevent such behavior in the future. Maya explained the importance of education, awareness, and respect for rules. She suggested programs where people could learn about fairness, communication, and understanding differences. She emphasized that knowledge and empathy were the keys to change. During the trial, Maya's calm confidence made people notice her in a new way. The officers' laughter, which had once seemed harmless to them, now looked like ignorance in the eyes of everyone in the room. Maya's presence reminded everyone that strength did not come from power or authority, but from intelligence, preparation, and courage. Maya also gave time for the officers to explain themselves. She asked questions politely and listened carefully. She wanted them to be heard, but she also wanted the truth. The officers realized that their jokes and actions were not funny anymore. They understood that behavior that seemed small could hurt someone deeply. The community continued to follow the trial closely. Local newspapers and radio stations reported on Maya's arguments and her clear explanations about fairness and respect. People admired her ability to stay calm under pressure. They admired how she had turned a moment of humiliation into a moment of strength. Maya's strategy was simple but powerful. She told the truth, explained the impact of actions, and connected every point to fairness and respect. She showed that being kind and careful in how we treat others was more important than jokes, laughter, or authority. People began to understand that Maya was showing the way for the whole town, not just for herself. By the end of the week, the trial had reached a turning point. Maya's arguments were so clear and convincing that even some of the officers' supporters began to question their own understanding of respect. Maya had not raised her voice or acted angrily. She had simply spoken with honesty, intelligence, and fairness. The courtroom was filled with a sense of seriousness and focus. Everyone realized that this trial was about more than one person. It was about community, fairness, and the rules that kept society strong. Maya's calm presence reminded everyone that courage could be quiet, and strength could come from knowledge and patience. Even the officers, who had once laughed without care, seemed to recognize the weight of their actions. Maya's words were not about revenge or punishment. They were about fairness, respect, and learning from mistakes. People in the courtroom felt that this trial was a chance to show that right and wrong mattered. At the end of the day, Maya gathered her notes and walked out of the courtroom. The sunlight felt warmer and brighter than ever. She knew the trial was not over, but she had made a strong impression. She had shown that intelligence, preparation, and calm courage could change the way people thought. Outside, some of the townspeople waved at her. Children smiled, inspired by the story of the young woman who had once been laughed at but now stood as a symbol of fairness. Maya waved back. She felt proud, not because she wanted praise, but because she knew that her actions could help make the community better. Maya went home that evening, thinking about the days ahead. She knew the trial was far from finished, but she also knew that the lessons she had taught so far were already being remembered. People were learning that respect and fairness were important, and that even small actions could have big consequences. As she sat at her desk, Maya reviewed her notes for the next day. She thought about the officers, the community, and the importance of staying calm and focused. She reminded herself that the goal was not just to win the trial, but to make sure everyone understood that fairness and respect were more important than jokes or power. Maya smiled quietly. She was ready for whatever came next. She had turned a moment of humiliation into a journey of courage and knowledge. She had proven that one person with intelligence and calm courage could make a difference. The trial had just begun, but Maya's story was already inspiring the town of Linton and beyond. The trial continued, and the atmosphere in the courtroom grew even more intense. Maya arrived early that morning, carrying her carefully organized notes and a quiet determination. She had spent the night reviewing every detail, making sure she could explain each point clearly. Her mind was sharp and her heart was steady. She knew that today could be a turning point. As the courtroom filled with people, Maya noticed the officers sitting quietly, no longer laughing or joking. Their expressions were serious, and they seemed to understand that this trial was not about entertainment, but about truth and fairness. Maya took a deep breath and walked to the front. She greeted the judge with respect and smiled politely at the audience. The judge called the trial to order. Today was the day Maya would present testimonies from community members who had witnessed unfair treatment. One by one, they came forward. Each story was different, but all shared a common theme. Actions without respect could hurt people deeply. Maya listened carefully to each witness and asked questions that encouraged them to explain how these experiences affected their lives. One witness, Mrs. Taylor, a teacher from the local school, spoke about how students had been teased or treated unfairly because of small differences. She explained that this created fear and sadness in children, making it hard for them to learn and feel confident. Maya nodded and asked questions that helped Mrs. Taylor show how respect and fairness could make a huge difference in a school and community. Another witness, Mr. Ahmed, a shop owner, explained how some people in the town had been treated unfairly by authorities. He described how small actions like jokes or teasing could make people feel powerless. Maya carefully connected these stories to the larger point, that fairness and respect were not just rules but essential for a safe and happy community. Maya spoke clearly and calmly. She explained that when people in power acted without thinking about respect, it affected everyone. The courtroom was quiet and everyone was listening carefully. People could feel Maya's courage, her calm strength, and her commitment to fairness. She had taken a painful moment from her past and turned it into a lesson for the entire town. The officers who had once laughed at Maya's hair now faced the reality of their actions. They could no longer hide behind authority or jokes. Maya's calm questions and clear explanations showed that they needed to understand the consequences of their behavior. She asked them to reflect, not to punish, and her words carried a quiet power that touched everyone in the room. Maya also presented documents and photographs to support the stories of the witnesses. She showed that these experiences were not random or isolated. They were part of a pattern that needed attention. Her evidence was organized, simple to understand, and powerful. The audience and the judge could see that Maya had worked carefully and thoughtfully. During the trial, Maya also spoke about hope and change. She explained that while mistakes had been made, it was never too late to learn and do better. She encouraged everyone, including the officers, to think about how they could act with respect and fairness in the future. Her words were not just about the past. They were about building a better future for the community. Some of the officers' supporters tried to argue or interrupt, but Maya remained calm. She smiled gently and continued to speak clearly. Her patience showed everyone in the courtroom that real strength was not in shouting or defending oneself with anger. Real strength was in staying calm, explaining the truth, and helping others understand. Outside the courtroom, news about the trial spread quickly. People in Linton and nearby towns talked about Maya's courage. They admired how she had taken a moment of unfairness and turned it into a lesson for everyone. Young people felt inspired by her calm determination. They saw that one person with knowledge and courage could make a difference. Inside the courtroom, Maya continued to ask thoughtful questions. She encouraged witnesses to explain how respect and fairness could improve the community. She asked the officers to think about how their actions had affected not just one person, but many. She reminded everyone that fairness and understanding were responsibilities that came with power. The officers began to respond more honestly. They spoke about what they had done and admitted that they had not thought about how their actions might hurt others. Maya listened carefully and nodded. She did not mock them or raise her voice. Instead, she guided them to see the importance of change. Her calm strength made it clear that the courtroom was a place for truth, learning, and fairness. Maya also shared stories from other towns where respect and fairness had improved relationships between people and authorities. She explained that when everyone acted with understanding and care, communities could be strong, safe, and happy. Her words inspired hope and showed a path forward. As the trial went on, the audience began to notice a change. The officers' confidence and pride which had once allowed them to laugh at others, began to fade. Maya's quiet courage and preparation had created a new energy in the room. People began to see that fairness and knowledge were more powerful than jokes or authority. One of the most important moments came when Maya addressed the officers directly. She asked them how they would act differently in the future and how they would show respect to everyone in the community. The officers paused, thinking carefully. Maya gave them space to answer. Their responses were honest but thoughtful. They began to understand the lessons she had been teaching quietly and firmly throughout the trial. Maya also reminded everyone in the courtroom about the importance of empathy. She explained that understanding others' feelings could prevent harm and build stronger communities. She spoke about how even small actions mattered and that every person could make a positive difference. Her words were simple, but they carried great meaning. The judge watched closely. He could see how well Maya had prepared, how patiently she had guided the witnesses, and how clearly she had explained the lessons about fairness, respect, and community. He appreciated her calm and thoughtful approach. Maya had turned what could have been a difficult and emotional trial into a meaningful lesson for everyone present. At the end of the day, Maya packed her notes and stood quietly for a moment. She looked around the courtroom and noticed the respect and attention she had earned. Children in the audience smiled at her, inspired by the example she had set. Adults whispered to each other about the lessons they had learned. Maya knew that her work was not just about the trial, but about teaching the community how to act with care and understanding. As she walked home, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here. From the day her hair had been laughed at to this moment of strength, she had grown in courage, knowledge, and patience. She had learned that true power came from preparation, fairness, and calm determination. She had shown that one person could inspire change without anger or revenge. Maya also thought about the officers. She hoped they had learned an important lesson. She wanted them to understand that respect and fairness were not just rules but responsibilities. She hoped that their future actions would reflect the lessons they had learned in the courtroom. That evening, Maya returned to her home and sat at her desk. She wrote notes about the trial, reminders about the lessons she had taught, and ideas for helping the community continue to grow. She knew that her work was far from over. Change took time, patience, and consistent effort, but she felt confident that the seed she had planted in the courtroom would continue to grow. Maya smiled as she looked out of her window at the quiet streets of Linton. She remembered the laughter and teasing from years ago, and now she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had faced a moment of humiliation with courage and had turned it into an opportunity for learning and growth. The trial was still ongoing, but she had already made a lasting impact on the community. As the sun set, Maya prepared for the next day of the trial. She knew that more challenges awaited her, but she also knew that her calm determination and knowledge would guide her through. She had proven that strength and courage were not about shouting or forcing others to listen. True strength was about understanding, fairness, and guiding people toward change. Maya closed her notebook, took a deep breath, and looked forward to the next day. She was ready to continue the trial, to continue teaching the importance of respect and fairness, and to show that even one person could inspire a community. The journey was not easy, but Maya was prepared to face it with patience, intelligence, and courage. The courtroom was quiet that morning, yet the air was filled with tension and anticipation. Today was one of the most important days of the trial. Maya arrived early, carrying her notes and a calm determination. She had prepared carefully, knowing that this day could decide how the community would see fairness and justice. Every step she took felt deliberate and strong. As Maya walked to the front of the courtroom, she noticed the officers sitting nervously. Their confident expressions from the past had vanished. Maya did not smile or gloat. She simply stood tall, ready to guide the proceedings with honesty, knowledge, and calm authority. The judge nodded at her, signaling that it was time to begin. The first witnesses of the day were young people from the town. Children and teenagers came forward, their voices soft at first but growing stronger as Maya encouraged them to speak clearly. They described how they had witnessed teasing, jokes, or unfair treatment in their schools and neighborhoods. Maya listened carefully and asked questions that helped them explain their experiences fully. Each story highlighted the importance of respect and kindness in everyday life. One young girl, Lila, spoke about how she had seen her friend treated unfairly because of something small. something that should not have mattered. Lila's voice trembled, but Maya encouraged her gently. "Take your time. Speak clearly about what you saw and how it made you feel," she said. Lila nodded and continued, explaining how important it was for everyone to feel safe and respected. The courtroom listened silently, and the impact of her words was powerful. Maya then spoke to the officers directly. She asked them to reflect on their actions, not with anger or punishment, but with understanding. She asked how they would act differently in the future. The officers were quiet at first. They realized that the trial was not about revenge, but about learning and growing. Maya's calm presence made them see that honesty and reflection were more important than defense or excuses. The next part of the trial involved documents and reports. Maya had collected examples from the community showing the effects of unfair treatment. She carefully explained each point, connecting it to the importance of respect and fairness. Every word she spoke was clear and simple, yet powerful. People in the courtroom began to see the pattern of behavior and how it affected not just one person, but the whole community. One man, Mr. Flores, a longtime resident of Linton, spoke about how he had been affected by jokes and disrespect from those in authority. Maya asked questions that allowed him to explain how even small actions could have lasting effects. She highlighted that respect was not just about rules, but about creating a safe and caring environment for everyone. The courtroom began to understand that fairness and understanding were essential for a strong community. Maya also emphasized the importance of forgiveness and learning. She explained that while mistakes had been made, it was never too late to improve and do better. She encouraged the officers to see this trial as an opportunity to learn and grow, not just as a legal matter. Her words were firm yet gentle, showing that strength could come from compassion as well as knowledge. The officers responded cautiously. They admitted that they had acted without considering how their actions might affect others. Maya listened carefully and nodded. She did not mock them or raise her voice. Instead, she guided them to understand the lesson she had been teaching throughout the trial. That respect, fairness, and awareness were more important than power or jokes. Maya also brought forward experts who explained the psychological impact of humiliation and disrespect. They described how even small actions could affect confidence, mental well-being, and community trust. Maya asked questions in a way that connected their findings to real-life experiences in Linton. The audience began to see clearly how important it was to treat everyone with dignity. The officers listened, and their expressions showed a mix of realization and reflection. They began to understand that their past behavior had consequences far beyond what they had imagined. Maya's calm, firm guidance helped them see that acknowledging mistakes and committing to change was a sign of strength, not weakness. Outside the courtroom, the news spread quickly. People in Linton and nearby towns talked about Maya's courage and intelligence. They admired how she had taken a painful moment in her life and transformed it into an opportunity for education and growth. Young people felt inspired by her calm determination, seeing that one person could influence an entire community with patience, knowledge, and fairness. Inside the courtroom, Maya continued to speak about the importance of leadership and accountability. She explained that people in positions of authority had a responsibility to act with fairness and care. She reminded everyone that true leadership was about guiding others with respect, not using power to intimidate or belittle. Her words resonated deeply, and the courtroom seemed to lean in, listening closely to every word. The judge asked Maya questions about how communities could prevent such unfair treatment in the future. Maya spoke about education programs, workshops, and public discussions that could teach respect and empathy. She emphasized that knowledge, awareness, and communication were the keys to preventing harm. Her answers were simple, clear, and thoughtful. As the trial progressed, the officers who had once laughed at Maya's hair began to reflect more openly. They admitted that they had underestimated her courage and preparation. They realized that their behavior had been hurtful, not harmless. Maya did not celebrate their discomfort. Instead, she acknowledged their honesty and encouraged them to continue learning and improving. The courtroom was filled with a sense of seriousness and focus. Everyone understood that this trial was about more than one incident. It was about building a community based on fairness, respect, and understanding. Maya's calm presence reminded everyone that courage could be quiet, and that true strength came from intelligence, preparation, and compassion. Maya also addressed the community directly. She spoke about the importance of standing up for fairness, not with anger, but with knowledge and courage. She encouraged people to support each other, to educate themselves, and to act with respect. Her words inspired hope and showed that change was possible when people worked together with understanding and patience. The officers listened carefully as Maya concluded her presentation for the day. She did not speak with anger or revenge. Instead, she spoke with clarity, fairness, and guidance. She had shown that the courtroom was not only a place for judgment, but also a place for learning, reflection, and growth. As the day ended, Maya packed her notes and looked around the courtroom. She noticed the respect and attention she had earned. Children and adults alike seemed inspired by her example. Maya knew that her work was not just about winning the trial, but about teaching the community how to act with care, fairness, and understanding. Walking home, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the day her hair had been laughed at and the years of preparation and learning that had followed. She realized that every step had strengthened her courage and her ability to guide others toward fairness. She had turned a painful moment into a lasting lesson for the community. That evening, Maya sat at her desk, writing notes and reminders for the next day of the trial. She thought about the officers, the witnesses, and the community. She knew that the trial was far from over, but she felt confident that the lessons she had shared so far were already making an impact. People were learning that fairness, respect, and empathy were essential for a strong and happy community. Maya smiled quietly, knowing that she was ready for the challenges ahead. She had faced humiliation, learned from it, and grown stronger. She had shown that courage and intelligence could overcome fear and injustice. The trial had become more than a legal matter. It had become a lesson in leadership, fairness, and the power of calm determination. As the sun set over Linton, Maya prepared herself for the next day. She knew that more challenges awaited, but she also knew that her knowledge, patience, and courage would guide her through. She had proven that true strength came from understanding, fairness, and the ability to guide others toward positive change. Maya closed her notebook, took a deep breath, and looked out at the quiet streets. She was ready to continue the trial, ready to inspire the community, and ready to show that one person with calm courage and knowledge could make a difference. The journey was not over, but Maya's example had already begun to shape the future. The day of the trial's conclusion had arrived. The courtroom was full, and a quiet anticipation filled the air. Maya arrived early, carrying her notes and a calm confidence. She had prepared for this moment for years. She knew that what happened today could not only change her life, but also set an example for the entire community. Maya took her seat at the front of the courtroom. The officers, who had once laughed at her hair, sat quietly in the defendant section. Their expressions showed a mix of nervousness and reflection. Maya did not let herself be distracted. She focused on the task ahead, guiding the courtroom toward fairness, understanding, and resolution. The judge called the session to order. Today, Maya would present her final arguments. She stood and addressed the courtroom with calm authority. She began by summarizing the events that had brought them all here. She spoke about her experience, the impact it had on her life, and the lessons she had learned. Her voice was steady, clear, and strong. Maya reminded everyone that fairness and respect were essential for a healthy community. She explained that while the officers' actions had caused harm, this trial was not about revenge. It was about learning, growth, and ensuring that everyone understood the importance of treating others with dignity. Her words resonated with the audience, filling the room with a sense of seriousness and reflection. She then presented evidence showing the broader impact of unfair treatment. She described how small actions like jokes or teasing could create fear and sadness, affecting not only the person involved, but also the entire community. Maya explained that respect and understanding were responsibilities for everyone, especially those in positions of authority. Witnesses were called one last time. They spoke about how Maya's courage had inspired them. Children spoke of feeling safe and heard because someone had stood up for fairness. Adults spoke of understanding the value of patience, knowledge, and calm determination. Maya listened attentively, nodding and thanking each person for sharing their story. Their words strengthened her resolve. Maya then addressed the officers directly. She spoke with honesty and calmness. She asked them to reflect on their actions and to commit to change. The officers listened quietly, realizing that Maya was not there to humiliate them, but to teach a lesson about fairness, respect, and responsibility. Maya's calm approach made her message more powerful than any anger or punishment could have. She encouraged them to see this moment as an opportunity to grow. She explained that true strength was in recognizing mistakes and choosing to act better in the future. The officers, listening carefully, nodded. They understood that their actions had consequences, and they began to see the importance of respect in every part of their work. Maya also addressed the audience. She explained that change was not easy, but it was possible when people acted with patience, knowledge, and courage. She emphasized that one person's voice could inspire others, and that standing up for fairness was a responsibility everyone shared. Her words inspired hope and confidence in those listening. The judge watched closely, appreciating Maya's clear and thoughtful presentation. He could see the impact of her calm strength on everyone in the courtroom. He acknowledged how she had transformed a moment of personal humiliation into a lesson for the entire community. Her intelligence, patience, and courage had created a powerful example for others to follow. After Maya finished speaking, the judge asked her to explain what steps could be taken to prevent similar incidents in the future. Maya outlined a plan for education, awareness, and community programs. She explained how teaching respect, empathy, and fairness could help everyone work together for a better community. Her plan was simple, clear, and practical, and the judge and audience understood its importance. The officers were asked one final time to reflect on their actions. They admitted that they had made mistakes and promised to act with more care and respect in the future. Maya acknowledged their honesty and encouraged them to follow through with their commitment. Her calm acceptance and guidance helped create a moment of understanding and reconciliation in the courtroom. The judge then began to deliver the verdict. He spoke about fairness, responsibility, and the importance of learning from mistakes. He acknowledged Maya's courage and intelligence in guiding the trial and helping everyone understand the lessons of respect and dignity. The courtroom listened in silence, aware that this moment marked a turning point not just for Maya, but for the community as a whole. The verdict emphasized the need for accountability, education, and awareness. The officers were encouraged to continue learning, to engage with the community, and to ensure that respect and fairness were always at the center of their work. Maya felt a quiet satisfaction. Justice had been served, not through anger or punishment, but through knowledge, guidance, and fairness. As the trial concluded, Maya gathered her notes and looked around the courtroom. She saw people nodding in agreement, children smiling with admiration, and the officers reflecting thoughtfully. She felt proud, not because of recognition, but because she knew she had made a meaningful difference. She had shown that courage, intelligence, and calm determination could inspire real change. Outside the courthouse, townspeople had gathered to see Maya. Many had followed the trial closely, inspired by her example. They cheered quietly as she emerged, not with loud celebration, but with smiles of respect and gratitude. Children ran to greet her, holding small gifts and drawings to show their admiration. Maya smiled and thanked them, feeling a deep sense of connection and responsibility to her community. Maya walked through the streets of Linton, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the day her hair had been laughed at, the years of study and preparation, and the countless moments of learning and growth. She realized that every challenge she had faced had strengthened her courage and ability to guide others. Her heart was full of hope. She knew that change was not instant, but she had taken a significant step toward building a community where respect and fairness mattered. She had shown that one person, armed with knowledge and calm courage, could make a lasting impact. Maya returned to her home and sat at her desk. She wrote notes about the trial, ideas for community programs, and reminders about the lessons she had shared. She thought about how she could continue inspiring others and ensuring that respect and fairness remained central in Linton. She knew that her journey was ongoing, but she felt confident that the seeds she had planted would grow strong. That evening, Maya looked out her window at the quiet town. The sun was setting, painting the sky with warm colors. She reflected on the transformation that had taken place in the courtroom and the lessons that would live on in the community. She felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. Maya knew that the journey of change was never easy. It required patience, courage, and consistent effort. But she also knew that every step mattered. Every lesson taught, every example set, and every act of fairness and respect contributed to a stronger, kinder community. The officers, once careless and dismissive, had learned important lessons about respect, accountability, and the power of calm reflection. The community had witnessed how courage and knowledge could overcome fear and humiliation. And Maya, who had once felt powerless, had become a symbol of strength, wisdom, and fairness. As the town of Linton settled for the evening, Maya felt a quiet satisfaction. She had turned a painful experience into a story of courage and learning. She had shown that even in the face of laughter and disrespect, one person could stand tall, speak the truth, and inspire change. Her journey was a reminder that strength came from knowledge, patience, and a commitment to fairness. Maya closed her notebook, took a deep breath, and smiled. She had faced humiliation, learned from it, and guided others toward understanding and respect. She had shown that courage did not have to be loud or aggressive. It could be calm, intelligent, and compassionate. The trial had ended, but Maya's story would continue to inspire the community. People would remember how she had stood with dignity, how she had taught important lessons, and how one person's courage could create lasting change. Maya's journey was a triumph not just for herself, but for fairness, respect, and the power of knowledge. As night fell over Linton, Maya felt ready for whatever came next. She knew that her role in the community would continue, and that her efforts could help build a future where respect and fairness were never ignored. She had faced the past with courage, guided the present with wisdom, and inspired the future with hope. Maya's journey had reached a powerful conclusion, and yet it was only the beginning of a brighter path for her town and everyone in it.